Hi guys! Last time I posted it was still summer and oh how I did not want summer to end this year. I really couldn't get enough of the warmth and sitting outside in a chair with a book, strolling around with the breeze in my hair and wearing all the cute summer clothes. But we've hit November now and we're way past that. And we have now entered the dark days.
Quite literally, where I live, the days become shorter, darker, windier, and more wet. And I see two ways to go about that.
Either you sit by a window in your PJs staring outside at the rain, depressed and lonely, eating whole chocolate bars and counting the days till summer's back again, while you're neglecting the world, your loved ones, and your hairstyle. Yeah, let's not go there, shall we?
Or you embrace the new season with all its mystery, its stories, falling leaves, and darker colors. And chocolate. I mean, even in the second scenario, you need chocolate. And I choose the latter. Bring on the murder mysteries and bring on the stories with gentle and more profound magic. Getting lost in a book in an old library where the floors are creaking. And bring on the tweed pens, bring on the knitted sweaters, and bring on the dark academia accessories. Now, before I get into the DIY accessories, I know some of you are probably familiar with the term dark academia, but for those who are not, here's a short summary. The term dark academia started to appear around 2010-2015 and saw an incredible increase in popularity as an internet aesthetic during the COVID pandemic. Dark academia celebrates education, studying hard, and getting lost in a certain topic. There's a strong focus on the classical arts like literature, art, and poetry, but in my opinion, every type of study would fit the bill here. Mysticism often also is a big part of this aesthetic, and this can point to murder mysteries, detective work, but also to magic and sorcery of some kind. Setting is very important here, as most dark academia activities take place on campus of a well-established, high-status university like Oxford, Cambridge, or one of the Ivy League universities. Places that most of us will only see in movies, on a holiday, or maybe if you're lucky when you live near one of those universities. As a side note, I think other universities and places of education in the world can be just as established and offer the same or maybe a higher quality of education. But I think the Oxbridge and the Ivy League universities are probably better known because they've been mentioned so many times in all sorts of media. And as more and more people have English as their second language, they have been fed these names more than, for instance, the names of universities in Arabic, Asian, African, or even other Western countries. So it's good to know that this aesthetic is very centered around the Western world, and the idea that this culture, the Western culture, and its ideas are more established and perhaps even superior over others. Now I want to be very clear that I do not share this view and that I rather focus on the aesthetics of dark academia. I believe that anyone should be able to participate in that, no matter who you are or where you're from. A key point with dark academia is that the backdrop often is built, preferably in a Gothic architectural style. This is to add to that feeling of mysticism, high status, and intimidating splendor. Along with that are activities such as visiting libraries, preferably old ones, reading by candlelight, studying long hours, solving mysteries, doing your own detective work to get to the bottom of things, just because you care so much and you want to know. So the pursuit of knowledge is a very big thing here. For me, dark academia also has to do with the change of season. I really need to embrace the colder, darker months to get through them. And I love that this aesthetic romanticizes the rain and the darker days. For me, it makes it okay that I will live in a colder season for a while again. And it actually makes me feel like I'm in a mysterious and magical world myself. A big part of dark academia and something that is a lot more accessible to us all are the fashions. Think blazers, sweater vests, button-up shirts, sweaters with argyle or cable knit pattern, finely knitted turtlenecks, tailored trousers and skirts. The focus is both on feeling comfortable, so in theory you can study all night long, and on looking smart, because you want to look smart, but it can also come in handy when you've been studying for 20 hours in that library and you're finally going home and you look like a zombie, that you look somewhat presentable while you drag yourself down the street. Fabrics used in dark academia clothing often are made of natural fibers like wool, cotton, silks, perhaps a touch of lace here and there, and leather. Materials that you probably need in a colder climate and that are more durable, so you won't have to buy anything new. Because who would prefer shopping over Schopenhauer anyway, right? As the term dark academia already suggests, the colors used are mostly dark. So think your grays, your blacks, dark blues and browns. But I think this aesthetic looks even better if you add a pop of white here and there, and maybe also some kind of red. For accessories, think Oxford shoes, of course, and lace-up boots, a leather book bag, leather belts, ribbons, bows, ties, pearls, a beautiful but broken watch. I mean, why keep track of the time if you want to get lost in your favorite subject anyway? A small notebook and binoculars so you can spy on your enemies while you write down the devious things they're saying while they're just sipping coffee. You can also think of certain details for your accessories, such as claws, fangs, horns or antlers, spiders, game cards, celestial items, or items with a gothic touch. When it comes to makeup, I think the key here is to keep things minimal. I can imagine you don't want to spend a lot of time on that if you want to work intensely on one of your favorite subjects. But probably a bit of lipstick in a darker shade of red would be nice, or painting your nails in a darker color would do the trick. Now, especially the dark academia mood really resonates with me, because I haven't been to university in quite a while. I haven't even been near one, I think, since a couple of years. My place of work really does not remind me of a gothic old university at all, and I don't have the time to go running around in search of one of them. But I do like to get in the mood before I go sewing, especially now when I'm sewing some dark academia items. So I try to get in the mood in other ways. And I wanted to share this with you because it might get you motivated as well to start sewing. So for instance, start with a movie or series that have costumes that really speak to this dark academia aesthetic. So some examples of films are The Theory of Everything, Kill Your Darlings, The Dead Poets Society. It's a very famous one and often mentioned in these dark academia lists. Tolkien, and this doesn't have anything to do with Lord of the Rings, but with the writer of Lord of the Rings and his life. I found the setting to be very dark academia and the fashion as well, so I highly recommend. Harry Potter, The Imitation Game, Enola Holmes, The Holdovers, which I found very touching and also has a great deal of humor in it. I'm also excited about the fashion and the story of the new Nice Out mystery, Wake Up Dead Man, which has not come out by the time I'm filming this, but perhaps when I posted it, it might have gotten out and you can watch it. I also wanted to include a movie especially for the sewing community, and that is Phantom Thread. Now, you might not think of this movie directly as dark academia, but it does have those dark academia vibes to me. The main character, Reynolds Woodcock, is very dedicated to his craft, and he can be very controlling. He's haunted by the death of his mother, and he stitches hidden messages into the dresses that he makes. There is this ominous atmosphere, and especially with the music and costumes, this all reads as very, very dark academia to me. Now, if you want to stay in that dark academia mood for a little while longer and movies are just not enough for you, here are some series that I suggest. So first off is Wednesday. I think the costumes here are Both modern but very Gothic inspired, and I think this is a great source of inspiration. The Chair is another series I recommend. The Residence, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and The Bletchley Circle, San Francisco. If you want to take a reading break during your sewing, taking breaks is not really part of dark academia, but I suggest you ignore that part. Take your breaks, it's really important. Here is a list of books that I think you will like. Of course, at the top of that list is Donna Tartt's A Secret History. Now this has become sort of the Bible of dark academia, as so many sources suggest it. And if you like murder mysteries set in an old world campus, then I can recommend it as well. And please don't let the volume scare you. I was hardly able to put it down as Donna Tartt's writing kept pulling me in. Another suggestion I have is the Selected Poems by Emily Dickinson, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, the books of Jules Verne. I have a collection of 4 of his novels, 5 Weeks in a Balloon, A Journey to the Center of the Earth, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and Around the World in 80 Days. What is most dark academia to me in these books is the pursuit of knowledge, perseverance, and focusing on specific goals. Another book that I can recommend is actually a series, because Stephen Fry has written several books on Greek mythology, one of them being Mythos, that I've been reading and really been loving. It both really speaks to Greek mythology, which is a classical art, and that is very dark academia. Something else is that Stephen Fry is just a really great writer and he makes me laugh all the time, so I highly recommend. Another book that might be a little bit of a surprise is this one. It's Amazing and Extraordinary Facts on London by Stephen Holliday. And I really recommend this because he writes about specific events that happened throughout history in London. So of course this might be a book that you will take with you when you're strolling around London if you get a chance. But I'm sure there are other books like this for other cities. I just think there's something so romantic about traveling with a book instead of just your phone. And this one is small and light, so easy to bring with you when you go exploring. Now, especially if you like to sew, I have a special recommendation for you, which is The Golden Thread by Cassia St. Clair. I have the Dutch version right here, but the original is in English and it has been translated in many other languages as well. Cassia delves deep into the history of fabrics and what they were used for. From wool that was used for Viking sails, what types of fabric was used to wrap mummies in, to clothing specifically made to endure the coldest climates on Earth. And if you're a sewer like me, I think you will like this one. Now lastly, to keep the dark academia vibes going even while you're sewing and you really need to focus on your work, listen to some dark academia music. Now there are a lot of playlists on Spotify you can choose from. I think if you type in dark academia you will find a lot of them. And if you're not quite sure where to start, you might start with listening to soundtracks of the movies that I've already mentioned before. My favorite right now is the soundtrack of The Theory of Everything, and it really keeps me going while I'm sewing. So finally we have arrived at the DIY Dark Academia accessories. And I think this is the best way to make the dark academia aesthetic accessible for everyone. Most of you might already have the dark academia outfit, but you might miss some little accessories to complete your look. Now I know you don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that, again because the 20-hour-long study session awaits, so I try to make them as simple as possible for you. So first up is ribbons and bows. Now you can make this very easy for yourself and go to your local haberdashery store and pick out one of the beautiful ribbons they probably have there. And you're done. You can basically just put it in your hair, on your book bag, maybe on your umbrella for rainy days, or even replace your shoelaces with them if you really feel fancy. For that I suggest you take a longer piece of ribbon. A little bit more elaborate is making a bow.
Now to make sure I have a ribbon that really suits me, I first made a mock-up out of paper, like you see me doing here. So I am sure that I have a ribbon that's not too big or too small for my head. And hurrah, it fits. I really like this size. For reference, the size that I made here is 8 centimeters by 9 centimeters. I then took my piece of paper, put it on my fabric, and I traced and cut it twice. And of course, I'm using this very dark academia wool for this. So now we are left with 2 pieces of fabric that I will join together to make the bow. For that I just place the right sides together and sewed along the edges. Make sure you leave a little gap so you can put the whole piece inside out again. Before you do, don't forget to cut the corners. This is one of the few places you actually can cut corners, so you know, go for it. Now that you're awake again, let me show you how I got sharp corners by using this pencil. I gave it a quick press, covered with cotton of course, because we're dealing with wool here. Sewed the remaining opening shut. Then I shaped this piece in the way I wanted to sit in the bow, and I sewed the whole thing together. Now I hope you can see what I'm doing here. I'm trying to sew in between the layers, so you won't see as much of the stitching on the outside of the bow. Now I think it's kind of cute to make this bow into a hairpiece. So here I'm taking a little bit of paper to see if I can make it into a middle part that I can attach an elastic to. I then cut that out of my wool and sew 2 of the outer edges closed before I sew the rest of the edges right sides together. And after turning that inside out, I have my middle piece for this ribbon and I can attach the elastic now. Now all that's left to do is close up this little piece of ribbon and voila, we have ourselves a new Dark Academia hairpiece.
The second accessory I wanted to share with you is more of a hack, and it's actually quite easy to do, and that's replacing your shoelaces. So if you have lace-up shoes like Oxfords or lace-up boots and your shoelaces don't really fit that Dark Academia theme, like in my case, then you can replace them, for instance, by that ribbon that you got from the haberdashery store. But I'm going to make it even easier. I have a set of darker shoelaces that I will replace for these lighter shoelaces. The third accessory I want to share with you are pearls. I really love pearls and I would like to wear them more often, but I don't actually have a lot of pearls. What I do have though are these earrings that I've made in the past. And even though 16-year-old me would have worn them a lot, I don't right now, so it's time to destroy them. And then I ended up with quite a lot of pearls, at least enough to make a bracelet out of. And for that I'm using this nylon thread, but also these black little beads that I found hidden away in my stash somewhere, which for once actually made me applaud my hoarder tendencies. Anyway, I strung these all together. I assume you've learned in first grade how to do that. And probably you've also learned this hack, which is to double up your thread to make the bracelet more secure. And then I even went back for a third time to make knots on several places of the bracelet. So now that it's secure enough that you could, figuratively speaking, be grabbed by a wild bulldog and the bracelet would still survive, let's cut off the excess thread and voila, you have some new pearls to wear. Next up, I want to make a tie. I think it's so cool to wear a tie, and I've been wanting to do that for quite a long time now, but I haven't got to it yet because when I look online for ties, they are usually quite expensive and mostly they're not to my taste. I would like to get one that's a little bit more demure and basic so I can combine it with other things that I'm wearing instead of having a very shiny satin tie, which is usually the case with kind of a busy pattern in a color that I don't like.
Now, to sew your own tie, you really don't need a pattern. I'm going to show you a little hack that I used myself, and hopefully that will also help you to make your own tie exactly in the style and in the length and in the width that you want to. Now, first off, you might have or know someone who has tights. Take these tights and wrap them around your neck, and this might look silly to you, but for me it really helped to determine what length my tie should be. So here I'm adjusting it according to my wishes, and I figured that the best length for me is when the tie stops somewhere around my belly button. I also use the ties to determine the width of the tie, and then I measured that so I know how wide my tie should be. Then I made a quick mock-up out of paper to check if the tie had the right length and width. Now, to be honest, I wanted to put in the whole tutorial about how to make your own tie, but this video is getting way too long, guys, so I will make a video on that later. But for now this mock-up seems fine, so I'm going to create this out of fabric. Now, the best fabric that I could find for this in my stash was actually not a wool, but I think it's some sort of synthetic. But never mind, it will do the trick. Just make sure you cut it on the bias and not on the grain, and this is important because you're going to wrap this around your neck, which will be easier when you have cut it on the bias. And for the inside of the tie, I'm going to use little pieces of this shiny, also probably synthetic fabric, and I'm using this one because I like to have a little pop of color in there. Cutting out a pattern, you should end up with pieces looking like this. And I promised, guys, I will make a separate tutorial for you all so you know how to do it exactly. But once you've sewn that all together and gave it a little press, you should end up with something looking like this. Which, wouldn't you know it, just looks like a tie.
What you see quite a lot in dark academia are button-up shirts. Now, I like a button-up shirts as much as the next person, but when I wear a sweater over that, they can get quite uncomfortable. And I usually like to opt for a faux collar. The faux collar is especially useful if you live in a warmer climate, or if you tend to run hot, or if you just feel uncomfortable wearing a whole shirt under a sweater like I do.
And for this I took a shirt that I first took the sleeves off. I'm doing this because I want to try to reuse every part of the shirt, and with the sleeves intact they will be a lot easier to reuse in another project. Then I put on the shirt to see where exactly I want to cut it. I marked that line with an erasable pen, put some pins in there so the fabric wouldn't move, and then put my scissors to work. Now all that's left to do is to hem this piece and add some elastics to the sides, which will make it easier to put the shirt on and to make sure that it doesn't shift around while you're wearing it. And that's it. No, I'm kidding you guys. Of course there's going to be a reveal. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'm curious to know if you like this type of content. Let me know in the comments, and I will see you all next time.